Hi, my name is Lauren.
My name is Lucas.
I'm Kelly. I'm Katie.
My name is Mallory.
My name is Gabby.
Hi, I'm Shaylee Hunter.
Hi, my name is Jamie.
Hi, I'm Maddie.
Hi, I'm Olivia.
I've been on TPN for 18 years.
About 3.5 years.
5 years. 7 years.
39 years.
8 years.
26 years. That it was so long ago that people were still kind of figuring out what that meant. And for my family, we were being sent home with just a lot of questions, a lot of new technology, and not a very bright outlook for the future. And so figuring out what that meant for a family who wanted to do a lot of things and be safe and healthy doing it. And we had to involve a lot of other people. And I think for anyone that takes a lot to have so many people involved in your lives.
The day of discharge from the hospital, I got home very late in the day. The infusion nurse came very late in the day. I was exhausted. I was sick. And learning to do it myself was quite overwhelming on that particular day.
I was 13 years old and showering was really hard to figure out.
Trying to figure out just how to be normal. Go to school, do the extracurricular activities that I wanted to growing up, being in theater, anything that I wanted to do. It was just like, how am I going to make this a part of that?
Greatest initial challenge was learning how to just do everyday activities while keeping him safe. So learning how to take a bath, learning how to just let him be a toddler without, pulling on his wires, and keeping his dressing dry, teaching him to not pull on things, just basic life stuff, but keeping him safe.
For me, the greatest initial challenge to figuring out living on TPN was mostly just figuring out what I can and can't do while on it, or what I can and can't do with the central line.
Really avoid setting anything up when I was feeling really tired and sick.
We came up with this system where I had a port at the time, so it was able to be de-accessed once a week. And so that one day of the week when I was de-accessed, I would take a full shower, and then like a couple times throughout the week, my mom would wash my hair in the sink, which as a 13-year-old, that's fine and okay, but it's not sustainable for long term. So eventually I finally figured out how to go about covering my dressing with a large adhesive dressing and gauze, and basically making a giant Band-Aid that protects my dressing from a shower. So took some time, but we got it figured out.
I feel like I didn't overcome any of my challenges until I was like more independent and in junior high. I really wanted to be on the cheer team, and my mom was like, "Okay, you got to wake up early, stay after school, like do all these things. Like, are you sure?" I was like, "Yes, I'm going to do it." But we came up with a system of me wrapping Coban around my arm super tight, and that like me being the flyer and people catching me with their arms weren't gonna like yank it out or pull it or do anything. So, I mean, we made it work.
Mostly through getting involved with other people who have central lines and seeing how people were able to play sports, waterproof their central lines. And although I'm not as bold as some of those people and the things that they do, I have figured out ways to do the things that I love just more carefully.
It shouldn't limit you in any way, because there are solutions no matter what you do. And there are ways to figure out anything that you want to do, that you want to put your mind to. There are folks that will help you make that happen. As far as class and people, and I just, to people first starting off on this, people are so much more supportive and understanding of this than you might imagine. If you just ask for help, you'll find people that are willing to give it. You'll find, nutrition support companies that are willing to work with you.
Yeah, it was a long process. It took probably about 4 or 5 months to just get him settled in to even attend the first day of school. I had to talk to like the nursing director, the school nurses. I did not work the first 2 years of his life. I stayed in the hospital almost the first year with him, and then we came home, and I just took care of him. I started working very part time every other weekend as I alternated shifts with his dad, and little by little, I was able to work more and more as he became more stable health wise. And eventually, I did start working more. And then I got a remote job where I was able to work that way.
And what was fair for somebody dealing with a chronic illness like mine.
I decided I wanted to go to college, and I really utilized the disability services for helping me. I did a lot of online school for my undergrad, and now I'm finishing my master's this fall. Yay.
I'm very fortunate because with my current job, I work remotely. So being able to do that, I can really modify my schedule as needed. I can work and infuse at the same time. I can take a little more time in the morning. So I think that transition has been a really positive impact for my life and being able to work well on TPN. College was a much different experience. It took me a long time to kind of identify the supports I needed. I had my parents helping. I went, pretty close to home, and then I got nurses that were able to help. I did navigate quite a few health challenges, just figuring out what worked and what didn't.
So I do have official disability accommodations through our ADA office on campus. My professors and everybody in my program has been incredibly accepting of me, which is very, very helpful in that transition. Just having faculty members who are there to back me up if anybody tries to say anything, or have just been basically just wanting to work with me and saying, what can we do to make you feel comfortable in every position that you need to be in?
Oh, yes. And I felt like every trip I took, I learned something to help on the next trip. And what I did was I got in an airplane and went with my husband and 8 other friends on a river cruise to Egypt. After that, everything else was easy. So, and then I felt like I could do anything. I could go anywhere and I could do anything.
Throughout the years, we've learned to travel for a longer time. We learned to pack better. We do, my process is I make a travel list of all the medical stuff. Then I make my kits, and then I pack all my medical stuff in its own suitcases. That way, if I want to, I can check in my clothes and not have to carry it. But I typically do carry on most medical things. And yeah, it just takes preparation, time, patience, and not having big expectations.
Typically, what I will do is communicate my travel schedule to my home supply company and provide them where I need things shipped. But I will also bring like a bag with me, especially if I have a layover, if I'm flying, so that if something were to happen, I have that. It definitely adds another layer of complexity because typically, if I do get a delivery when I'm traveling, I have to coordinate with, the hotel or wherever I'm staying and make sure that I'm able to get it and get a refrigerator. And if I'm working when I'm traveling, I have to make sure I take time out of whatever event I'm at to go and coordinate my tubing. And a lot of times I'll have someone travel with me so that can sort of be their focus. And if I'm traveling for work, work can be my focus. So it definitely, there's a lot of moving pieces, and it's more than just like getting on an airplane or going for a road trip but I'm very fortunate to be able to travel. I like traveling. It's taken many years to kind of fine tune how to make it easier. I have TSA pre-check, which even though there's added barriers, I would say definitely makes a difference with the level of sort of oversight and security that they have when you travel with TPN. But every airport is different, every city is different. So you just have to be ready and plan, allow yourself a lot of extra time, even if you don't think you're going to need it, and just over plan and still expect that anything can happen.
When it comes to packing, I do day kits so that it helps me kind of not overpack, because I'm an overpacker by nature. I mean, like, I'm the girl that packs 10 outfits for 5 days, so it's already like ingrained in me to overpack, but it really helps me kind of, this is what I need. And then, a couple days of worth, of course, for emergencies and stuff like that. But packing day kits has been a huge help for us. Working with our medical team is great, making sure that they're in support, getting those letters.
His hospital, the home PN team, because we had to make sure they also felt we were safe enough to go. And then they just helped me kind of work through the hour changes so I can adjust his infusion schedule when we were over there. Then our infusion pharmacy helped us with changing like the shipment dates and giving us extra bags so we had enough. Also like backup fluids for emergency or we didn't make it back in time. I think, yeah, the pharmacy and then his doctors really helped us. And then I reached out to other people on TPN or HPN who have traveled, and I took all their tips.
Relationship with food is complicated and it is ever changing. I'm actually in the process of working on my relationship with food right now. I'm finding that eating is actually hindering my quality of life, maybe more than being able to eat improves it. So just always trying to find that balance. And of course, different disease states have different experiences with food because many different types of people are on TPN and not everybody has what I have going on in their digestive system. So, but my relationship to food is a little bit complicated, but as I've gotten older, I'm more open to what that looks like and it being fluid and changing throughout my life.
I think with our family, we always made food an option. So even if I only ate a little bit or tried something, we're able to eat. And so it was always presented. It was always a center, I think, of family gatherings, but our family was very accommodating around understanding that, I may eat some, I may not eat it all, that it wasn't sort of the center of our universe. Now as an adult, I eat regularly. Sometimes I still don't eat as much, but I think the only thing is like if you go places and other people like make it weird, and I've learned just not to like, worry about that. And we all waste food as a society, so if you don't eat that much, it's okay. You don't have to force yourself to make other people happy.
My son being on HPN definitely has changed his relationship with food. As he gets older, we are more flexible and we're more like he leads the way. He can eat what he wants to eat. If he doesn't want to eat, he doesn't have to eat. So for holidays, like I know we're all going to sit down and have a big family dinner, I usually always have a craft or activity for him. Also, if he does want to eat and he eats fast because he only eats a little bit and then he wants to go like to the next room and watch TV, we let him. We're just flexible with eating. We eat what we want and we don't stress about it. I think early on it was like very stressful, and he does go to feeding therapy, but it's very lax. He chooses the foods he wants to eat, and we kind of just keep that feeding therapy just for the reminder for him. But otherwise, we just let him do him.
In a society that's very food driven for social interactions, it is a complicated thing. And when I'm experiencing a time of not being able to eat, there are questions. And of course, when you're of a certain body type, people will make comments of, well, you need to eat. and put some meat on your bones and things like that. And those can be really hurtful. But sometimes you can put people in their place and tell them what's up, because not everyone knows about every condition under the sun. So that can be an opportunity to inform someone what you're experiencing, and maybe they won't say that to the next person that needs some meat on their bones down the line. But for me, some years holidays are easy and I feel okay about eating, and others less so. It's the fluid changing of that relationship with food.
So navigating holidays has definitely also been an evolution. So Olivia started TPN when she was 4. And, I come from a Puerto Rican and Italian family. So culturally, food is the center of everything. I mean, it's that way in many cultures. But so everybody was trying to heal Olivia with their secret soups or recipes, or let's try this or that. So holidays were always incredibly stressful because everyone wanted to feed her. I found navigating family engagements and big like holidays was really about setting boundaries.
My biggest tip for somebody who is learning to advocate for themselves either in or out of the hospital is just to educate yourself on your condition and everything that you're dealing with.
It's great if you can really focus and listen and learn and do things, hands-on. But if somebody alongside you can watch and listen as well, and even jot down the steps or a few notes, that can be a helpful thing.
I cannot say more than just do it. You are your own best advocate. You are the quarterback. You understand what's going on, and you have a better holistic scene than anyone else. And so, yes, doctors are to be respected. Yes, nurses are to be respected. Everyone who is supporting you is to be respected. And frankly, at the end of the day, for the most part, everyone's just trying to help. Everyone's trying to use the skill set that they have and the perspective that they have to do what they think is best. That being said, they don't have the holistic image. And so I'd say the main thing is just, as far as the patient, the most powerful thing you can do is understand where people are coming from, understand the perspectives and the skill set that they have, and explain to them what is the overall picture.
Whatever it is, like if it's going to make you happy, I feel like you should do it, because we deal with so much in this life that we don't have any control over, and just grasping at any little control that we do have is so important.
When someone's first learning how to advocate, I think the most important thing is to really understand your feelings, like kind of have like that conversation with yourself and what you need. Because once you can determine your needs, then the next step for us really is how are we going to communicate those effectively and respectfully. So I've been advocating for Olivia she was born and needed nutrition support at the age of 12 months old. So she finally advanced to central line at 4. But I learned early on to become an advocate for her, and it was like a switch changed in me. It's just like a fire ignited where, I had to make a choice. I have questions. I need more than what I'm getting. Like, how do I get to that next level? And you find your voice, and then use your resources. So once you figure out what the problem is and how and what you want to change and what you want to address, then it's how are we going to get there? Like, what are we going to do? Do we need to call, patient relations at a hospital, or do we need to, reach out to other families and see if maybe we're unique in our feelings, or maybe we're looking at it from a different perspective? I just always like to be as educated as possible, listen to what everybody has to say, but also make sure that our feelings aren't minimized or marginalized.
So when it comes to advocating for yourself in and out of a hospital setting, what I would have to say to that is that you have to do it. And it's because no one else has your back as well as you do. And if somebody's messing with your line in a way that is not safe, please stop worrying about their feelings and say something, because it's your life and you're the one who's going to have to suffer the consequences of their actions if they do something improperly.
So for me, as a caregiver, who I turn to for support when I need it, is usually other caregivers, like other moms. That's usually who I go to first to just ask questions and get different opinions. Sometimes when I need like support for like school stuff for him, then I turn to the social workers that work at the hospital. They help me a lot with just the documents I need and how to manage all that. And then my son, I would say like when he needs support, he turns to dad and I, like where he just comes to us and talks to us and tells us what he needs. He's really good at telling us what he needs, so that's helpful.
You know, if there's something you really want to do, rather than just convince yourself to not do it or that you can't, go talk to people and figure out a way to do it. There's no shame in ever asking for help.
When I need support, I have a really good friend who is also chronically ill, who I talk to a lot on the phone. We're long distance BFFs. She lives in South America. But we talk a lot when we're in need of support. My partner is also a really good listener when I need that, and he also, if he's asked, is willing to give advice if that's something that I'm looking for. And then my dad, who's been there through everything with me throughout the years, is always a supportive figure in my life.
Family, other people who have navigated like similar situations. And I think it's really important to make sure that you're not relying on any like one person who or like someone else's experience, but getting the information you need to make your own decisions. I think is really important. If it's somebody I just need to like vent to or share things with, like I have a lot of really great friends that I talk to. My husband is always my first point of contact, who gets to hear everything that happens. And my family is really close. So we have a group chat that is going at 24/7 that probably not everyone can understand. But I would say that I have a very strong support network, which I'm very fortunate for.
First one was my husband, and he's an engineer and has a very, very analytical mind. So although he saw me as the expert on the health things, he would ask the probing questions that would really help me put some things in perspective. The next tier and level were my adult children, and one of whom is a nurse and is very skilled. Two of my oldest best friends, neither of them live near me. One lives on the other side of the country, in fact, but we communicate with each other a lot by text, by email, on the phone, FaceTime calls, and they've been my staunch support. And they've been travel companions on many occasions too. And my friend was the one who came up with the idea first. Listen, I can walk right next to you. Put that on my back and let me carry it.
I didn't disclose any information of my diagnosis, and I kind of felt as if it was like something I had to hide because I didn't want people to find out, because I was afraid that people wouldn't like me the same, or that they would judge me because of my illness. And like there were all those stigmas behind it as well. So I finally took a different approach, and I just let people know, like, this is who I am, this is what I have. Like, if you have any questions, great. And it wasn't until I started doing that that people actually started like having stronger relationships with me, and I felt like people wanted to be around me more. And it's almost like I felt like I was keeping a secret and everybody knew that I was keeping a secret, and they didn't want to be around me because, like, obviously if you're keeping secrets about yourself and you're not being like your true authentic self, like people are going to pick up on that, and people are going to obviously feel like if you can't be true to yourself and authentic and open up, like how are they supposed to do that with you? And then, of course, dating was really hard in that aspect as well, of like just knowing when was the right time to like dump all of it onto somebody. I did a lot of dating sites, and I feel like I always kind of hit it and just had it come up naturally, which was always like weird. Like, it's just really awkward, like, especially when guys are like, hey, I know this really great restaurant, like, let's go here. And then I'm like, wait, I actually can't do that. Like, okay, explain that to me though. Like, so I ended up just putting it on my profile, like, this is what I have, like, take it or leave it, because it honestly weeded out the people that weren't supposed to be in my life so much faster than if I kept them around and they later dipped. Like, give them the out first, because if they're gonna take the out, they're gonna take the out.
I think my journey of sharing and educating about my diagnosis started like as soon as I was around peers. And I learned kind of growing up, like if folks don't have the correct information, they're going to create their own narrative. So I would always sort of give presentations to my class early on. And as I got older, I would present, it started off as like, my tummy is broken and I might not eat that much. And then when I was in high school, I would talk more about the biology and share like, the label of my TPN and kind of tie it to like what we were learning at the time. And it really like helped create a community, I think, because folks like knew what was going on and it wasn't this thing where people had to fill in the gaps. I will say when I got older, when I was in college, I really became more selective about who I shared it with because people didn't know me like know all those components, and I was like, why do they have to, like, we're friends or whatever. And then if people would come over to my dorm and see my TPN, or I was like, oh, I have to do this before we go out, or if someone was spending the night or whatever, then it would sort of create more of a conversation. But it was something that I felt I had control over as part of my identity. It's also very personal of how and when people share things, and that's totally fine.
Figuring out how much you want to disclose about your diagnosis or medical situation and to who can be a very hard thing to navigate. And so I can speak to in my like professional work, school life, and then in my social life, it's very different. So as far as work, school, I have just been very open about it from the beginning. We just navigate it carefully and try to just be yourself and not focus on the medical stuff as much. If it comes up, if someone asks you why you're using a mobility device or why you are hooked up to a backpack all the time, you can I kind of just say, oh, I have a GI disorder that makes me need extra nutrition. And so that's what I'm hooked up to all the time, and not go into huge detail about all of the complications and diagnosis and everything that comes along with it. And that just kind of comes in time.
Adapted well to having to carry his TPN and everything. It's very heavy. So when he was around 3, we started using a wheelie backpack. That was still kind of hard to navigate, but at least it gave him a little more freedom. And so just finding different ways for him to be able to move around was important. We also had like a mini grocery cart we used to put the backpack in. We used to just walk around with a grocery cart. And then he's only connected overnight, but if he does have to go out in the morning and he's still connected, he wears a little backpack. And we kind of also are flexible and we try to figure ways out. So for example, he uses a feeding pump, but he didn't want to use it at school. So at school, we do syringe boluses, like quick, small ones. But then when he's home in the morning and at night, he uses the feeding pump for like an hour. So we kind of just had to be flexible and figure different ways out so then he's more comfortable.
So there's a few things that I do feel like I've missed out on due to being on PN. One of them being I knowing what I know now about my body, I think had I been given the tools to be able to relieve my stomach better as a younger person, I could have had a lot more fun in high school and in my earlier 20s because I was in a lot of pain for a lot of those years. And I also think because I'm on PN and because I started it so young, I don't really know that I know that I get to live truly with choices that I've made. For example, if I wasn't on PN, I truly believe that I would be like a vegan granola girl. And I didn't get to make that choice. And that's okay because I couldn't live like that. But just with the current state of my body, but not getting to make those choices is a bit frustrating. I also struggle with travel. I know there's a lot of places that I can go safely and that there's good healthcare, a lot of places, but I can't just I can't do a surprise flight to South Africa because I can't. Like my partner could never surprise me with something like that unless he really planned and just had all my TPN and boxes ready to pack on a plane. So yeah, things like that are kind of a bummer to miss out on.
I don't swim anymore. And I know some people do, but I'm kind of risk averse, so I don't.
Time lost, time missed because of illness.
I feel like I've missed out on some aspects of my life and definitely like aspects that I wish I could have had. Like, for instance, like even though I did go to school growing up, like I do feel like I missed out on a lot. I definitely feel like even my career choices had to be specific in what my abilities were, especially like with my health and stuff, like trying to find jobs that maybe I could do from home or in the hospital. So, obviously, like, I'm not a professional scuba diver by any means. I mean, I don't even know how to swim because I've never been able to swim. So, I mean, it would really be a sink or swim situation if I did that.
I do feel like my body likes to rear its healthcare head at like very inopportune times. So like certain work events I was, supposed to go to and I would end up in the hospital.
Coping with all of the stress and everything that comes along with being on TPN or having a disease like mine is not an easy task. My biggest tip is go to therapy and don't worry about what your providers think about it. Dealing with the stress that comes along with having a illness or being on TPN is very difficult. And I need you to realize that it is normal to be anxious and stressed and things like that.
I just try like to make the best out of every situation, but I do enjoy writing. So sometimes like if it's just like I've noticed if it's just overwhelmed or sad, I write and then that helps me cope. For my son, he does have a child life specialist. That's a state program that they come to the house like every 2 weeks. And that's fun because he kind of gets the opportunity to talk to her about medical stuff, but during play. So, like, if he's going to have a procedure, she'll talk to him about it, make him a book, but not focus so much about it. Just kind of, it's out there. He gets to say, "Oh, I'm scared. I'm a little scared," or whatever he's feeling. So that's helped him. I think just he has tons of friends like at school, he has friends all over, but I think having different types of friends have helped him a lot. So like when we go to the Oley conference every year, he has his Oley friends. And then when other people travel in for care in the hospital we live by, like we try to meet up. So he has like his, short bowel friends. Like I think that's helped him a lot because he knows there's other people out there like him.
Try to replace your grief and anger with an attitude of gratitude.
So, I mean, I journal a lot. I write down my feelings. I talk to my friends, but for the most part, like I feel like just creating those healthy boundaries of like my health has to be my priority. If I can't take care of myself, how can I show up for other people or even myself in a job or at work or any of these things?
I think the way that I process is, I mean, I talk to people. I have a therapist and I have a great support system, but I also try to learn a lot, and I try to like find solutions, or even just how I can work with the people involved to find a solution that works for me. And I think acceptance is a big piece of it.
I think it takes there are so many ups and downs, and I think you just have to remind yourself that there are ups and downs. There will always be downs, but there will always be ups.
I felt like if I had a backpack that blended in with my wardrobe, that then it's less obtrusive and less noticeable. So I just, hit a good sale and have quite a variety of backpacks. I don't use necessarily a medical model edition, and I have several different sizes and for what suits me that day, what I'm doing on that particular day. And that helped me quite a bit.
The best thing that I ever did was get on Etsy and like find all the cool things that other people had made. I'm not creative in that aspect, but it's so fun to like support other people who understand what these lines are for and our other medical devices, and just having what they have made personally to help support them. So I feel like that's super great. Just go on Etsy, find some people that craft, make yourself all cute.
The spiral tubing that gets your tubing up off the floor, Vigon, getting a separate fridge for TPN. And then you can actually use your fridge as a fridge and have a better environment for your TPN, and kind of keep it separate from folks who might be like in your fridge and be like, what's that?
First, learn how to shower, because that's always a tricky one. Second, making sure you have some sort of organized system for the chaos that is medical supplies. To managing my own care, fortunately and unfortunately, I've always managed my own care. My parents decided that since it was going to be my thing for the rest of my life, or however long I was going to be on TPN, that I should be the one to learn how to do it from day one. So it's been me, the one woman show, since I was 13. I was sent home from the hospital, and a nurse came to my house and taught me how to set up TPN at my house. And then my dad came, like, wrote all the steps down for me and then typed that out later on that evening. And so then the nurse came back the following evening for setup again, and my dad wanted me to use those written instructions, and with her there to assist if I wasn't getting it right or whatever. And so I followed those written instructions to see if I could do it well, which I did. I think having everything was very organized, like in those sterilite drawers, like everything was. And my dad's a writer, so he uses really descriptive language. So it was helpful to have those instructions from somebody who was a capable writer of instructions. So yeah.
So I started managing my care at a very young age because my parents were very adamant that they wanted me to be independent as much as possible, and to also, like, if they're not around, like, who's going to care for me? And so I think I was like 11 when I started doing my own like TPN setup. My doctor actually let me pass off being able to learn and change my own bandages with my home healthcare nurse. So once my home healthcare nurse checked me off, let me like do it in front of them several times, and really got that sterile technique down, then they allowed me to do it myself.
So I tried to quickly learn the steps and then break them down into manageable pieces for myself, and then really tried to learn the best methodology of doing the steps well, so that I could minimize any risk to myself.
Start kind of managing my own care I was always just like really informed with like what was going on and what the process was. And like if I was inpatient, I always was given a choice. And we advocated that providers always made sure that I was the center of the process and things were explained. And if I had concerns, they were addressed. And in terms of like managing my TPN, I just remember like at a certain age knowing what it was, and then like I would have friends over and like explain it to them. And so I think like that teaching part. And then I think the real catalyst was when I went away to summer camp and being able to learn, to do things or to at least guide the nurse that was there to support. And then, I mean, by the time I got to college, I was like doing the majority of it. I think the things that like I wasn't and still aren't able to fully do independently is because of like strength and dexterity. So, sort of more of like a safety issue to have someone support with those things. But really just always learning and always being a part of the process of like knowing that eventually we would be doing it independently. I had a cabbage patch that had tubes, and so we used that early on when I was educating my classmates so I wouldn't have to like show them mine. And so that was another thing where I could like see and pretend on her.
Independence is huge for us. He's 8, so he wants more independence. I think the big one was maybe around 5. He used to have a bed with like rails on it, and we just put him into like a regular bed. We found the perfect like 4-wheel backpack that he could put all his stuff in and wheel around the house. So that kind of gave him independence where if he had to wake up overnight to use the bathroom, like he could go by himself instead of calling us for everything. He also like in the morning, he cleans up his bed sheets and everything, just throws it in the corner. Like we know if it needs to be washed or not. We've taught him how to just set up his overnight like insert pads, and he knows the name of his supplies, and he's curious. He's like this super curious boy, so he wants to learn, which helps. And so he wants to see how I do his central line, and I'm so paranoid of him like breathing all over it. So I was like, you can look, but wear a mask. So just ways that also make me feel more comfortable. And then he likes to see what's going on. I tell him, because like if I go to the bathroom or if I go downstairs to get a coffee or something, I tell him if anyone comes in and they have to touch your central line, make sure they wash their hands. Like nobody touches your central line unless they've washed your hands. So, and he knows that. So like little stuff like that he's learned.
When I started my career, I was a nurse in the Army, and serving the military in the 70s was quite an experience.
I think the coolest thing we've done in his life is we traveled to Europe with his TPN and all his enteral stuff, and I think that was the coolest thing because it was something we felt we never could do, and we just did it, and it worked out, and he had a blast, and it's like a memory that all of us like will always remember, and he always remembers as well.
I feel like I've done a lot of cool things. Like I've been able to live my life fully. Like I'm getting my master's degree. Like I never thought I'd be at this point in my life where I could say like, hey, I chose to get a college degree and I did all that work. And a master's at that. Like how amazing. And I work full time. Like I never thought I'd be able to like find a job I love that was willing to accommodate me and love me for who I am as well, and like, pick up the slack when I'm gone.
I think the coolest thing I've done in my life, there are a couple of things. One is I met President Obama. I got to go to the White House. That was pretty neat. The other thing I really am just proud of is that I have moved a few times. And so when I wanted to go to grad school, I moved to Boston after living in a very rural area my whole life because I've always wanted to live in a city.
Getting to go to Joshua Tree and going to see the redwoods, just getting to see like the beauty that's on our planet. Going back to school a couple years before I turned 30 was a pretty cool thing, and I'm really excited to almost have that off my checklist. I'm almost done with it.
I feel like the coolest thing that I've done in my life is just lived despite everything that's going on with me. And even though it just feels like I'm living life to someone else, or if I were to look at 13-year-old me was to see what I'm doing now, she would think it's the coolest thing ever. That I'm not just sitting here waiting for life to happen and waiting for my illness to get better before I go to nursing school or go to concerts, do the things that I love. That I can do all of that while on TPN. And I do. I travel, I go to concerts while hooked up to TPN. May take a little bit in security, but you can get there.
Went to Harvard College, graduated in 3 years, worked on Wall Street in New York till COVID picked up. I left. Was working those kind of crazy, 100-hour weeks plus.
I think it's just allow yourself to have all of your feelings because all of them are valid. And to really like immerse yourself in the community and learn as much as you can. Because like as cheese as it is, knowledge really is power. And the more that you educate yourself on how to manage this therapy, the more attainable things become for you.
My advice for anybody who is just starting out on TPN is 2 things. 1, to not be afraid to advocate for yourself. And 2, to not be afraid to live life, even if you're on TPN.
I think that it's important for, caregivers to know, or somebody new on TPN to know that it'll take time and that it's okay to just not have it all figured out. I feel like time and experience, trial and error is what really gives you the knowledge you need. I think, yeah, just having hope, and like if there's something you really want to do, most of the time there's a way to figure it out. Just trying not to give up and trying to figure a way to do it, even if it's not exactly the way you pictured.
Like anybody starting out on HPN to know, in the beginning, it can feel like every day is your worst day, but it can get better. It will get better, and have the hope and the belief that it will get better, because it can and it will.
I used to dress hiding my bandages, and the more that I've gotten older and more comfortable with my illness, the more I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna wear that cute shirt because it's cute. Like, who cares if my bandage shows just a little bit? Like, somebody wants to ask me a question or share, like, that's on them. So wear whatever you want. Like, please do not dress and hide your bandages because it is not worth it. It is not worth it.
There is hope, and you can create the life that you want or the life that you have had with differences. I think that the literature that is out there can be very daunting, and has not quite caught up with the people that are out there living life. And so find those people and hear their stories and be willing to ask questions and ask for support, and don't be afraid to try things that you want to do or that you had done before, and ask how to do them safely, because chances are they're possible. So just know that we are here, and there's a great community that is willing to support you, so that you can live your best life on TPN.
Lose hope, because it does get better. Your perspective changes more than you can possibly imagine over time, and you will learn more than you can possibly imagine, when you're first getting into it.
Something I'd really like to share with somebody just starting out on TPN is that it's not a death sentence. That idea that still lingers in the medical community it's untrue. And I just want you to take a look at us, like all of us in this video who've been doing this for a long time. We're not doing anything special aside from advocating for ourselves, which you also have to learn to do that. But it's a life-giving therapy. We are all here because it exists, and I'm really grateful that it exists. And I will say it's a process, but I hope that one day you can see it that way too. You can take your time because it also sucks. But one day, like, I hope it clicks that it's pretty cool.